Mortal Kombat 3 has been a highly controversial game in the Mortal Kombat series. Some people love it, others kind of hate it. It did bring new characters and new fatalities, but the biggest complaint about the game is the increase of difficulty that the new combo system brought to the table. Die-hard fans would embrace this system, while others would despise it because of the skill requirements in order to do these combos. While Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 did have their own combo systems, they mostly involved chain moves and juggling, which were easier to pull off. In Mortal Kombat 3, however, one would have to memorize a series of buttons in an almost fatality-style sequence in order to pull off the more powerful and effective combos in the game. Those in the past who could easily remember a few moves here and there, and still be able to compete in MK1 and MK2, would find themselves crushed by die-hard, more skilled players who memorize all the combos. This led to many MK fans feeling frustrated, and in some cases, not wanting to play the game. Even with that being said, MK3's combo system was needed to progress the series. In 1995, MK3 was competing with games such as Killer Instinct and Virtua Fighter, both of which were not only in 3D, but were very combo-heavy based games. Combo systems were the next advancement in fighting games gameplay. Had MK3 stuck to the MK1 and 2 formulas, the game would have most likely seemed very stale at this point, and would not have done well. For the home release of MK3, Midway decided to publish the game themselves, through their parent company, Williams Entertainment, instead of Acclaim, who was responsible for the MK1 and MK2 releases. MK3 saw many releases across a variety of platforms. The game also saw an upgrade in the form of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, which was also ported to the consoles only later to be outdone by the release of Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Join us as Retroware TV takes a look at these various home console ports.
Mortal Kombat!
Here we are again, another Mortal Kombat release for the Sega Master System. And unlike the first Sega Master System versions, I do not find this game entertaining at all. Luckily for most people, no one would play this abomination, as it only saw an official release in Brazil. Animations were really choppy, music and sounds were atrocious, and the controls were unbearable. Strangely enough, it contains more content than the previous two ported MK incarnations, but it's still not enjoyable to play. The game has more than 2 stages this time, and each character has a fatality, as well as a babality. Friendships and animalities were omitted though. While I can semi-recommend the other 2 MK games for the Sega Master System, I mean, let's face it, they all do kinda suck, I highly recommend staying away from MK3 for the Master System. These videos alone should satisfy any curiosity you have for it. Moving to the Sega Genesis version, Midway did a great job in cramming as much as possible into this port. Animations are good, and the sound, while definitely lacking, is acceptable for the Genesis. You can really tell that Midway really pushed the system's color capabilities, as almost the entire game's original color scheme is correct. This was an issue that the previous 2 versions released by Acclaim had. Even with that being said, you can see a lot of grain in the backgrounds. Much of the speech in the game is missing, and it sounds like a ton of sound effects have been reused for various characters. The version also has some tracks that have been misplaced, meaning that some of the arcade tracks are on different levels. All of the fatalities, friendships, animalities, and babalities are implemented into the game. As with just about every retro console version of this game, the game lacks the original intro story artwork that the arcade version had, which is a real shame, as it was some of the best in the series. One level that is missing from the game is the cemetery level, which is a discredit, as it was personally one of my favorite stages. The controls are great if you have the 6-button pad, but I personally found that I had to swap the run and block buttons from the default settings for easier use. All of the characters and secret characters have made the transition, and as an added bonus, you can unlock Shao Kahn and Motaro as secret characters, though you can only use them one at a time and only in the multiplayer mode. The Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 version of the game is mostly the same as the regular MK3 version, as far as music and sound. Shiva has been omitted in the game, and the game is missing some stages such as the balcony and street, Because of this, you can no longer uppercut your opponent through the ceiling on the subway and soul chamber stages. Animalities have been removed, but in their place, Midway put in the brutality fatalities, which are also in the Mortal Kombat Trilogy version of the game. Another thing you'll notice is that the voices for the characters' names have been omitted. They did manage, though, to have all the newly added characters from the arcade update. The endings on both of these versions do not include the original end story artwork that was in the arcade. The Super Nintendo version is definitely better than the Genesis version, as it has superior animations and sounds. The backgrounds in this version are more detailed than the Genesis, and the animations are slightly smoother. The sound, while heavily compressed, is more authentic to the arcade, but it is missing a lot of the original sound effects, and like in the Genesis version, some of them are reused for multiple characters. All the main and secret characters have made it to this port, as well as all friendships, babalities, animalities, and fatalities. Controls are solid, and the SNES control pad feels really comfortable when using the shoulder buttons for run and block. Like the Genesis version, the cemetery level has been omitted in this version. Again, Ultimate Mortal Kombat is pretty much the same as MK3 for this system. Just like the Genesis version, the character's name speech has been omitted from the game in order to fit the game on the cart. This version is also missing stages like the bank and the soul chamber, as well as the artwork from the arcade endings. Animalities have also been removed in this version, with brutalities taking their place. The PlayStation version of MK3 was an early release in the life of the system, and was even a system seller for a while. Even with it being an early release, it was a pretty well polished version. The graphics are near arcade perfect, and the loading wasn't too bad. The sound of the game was CD quality, so the original tracks and sounds were near perfect. The PS1 control pad was perfect for this game, and in my opinion is the best controller for the game. Everything has been put into this port, meaning all characters, fatalities, babalities, animalities, and friendships are present. The arcade ending art has been implemented, however the intro art for some odd reason was omitted. This port is easily the most complete retro console experience of MK3. The Sega Saturn did not see a release of MK3, but did get Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Graphics were almost as good as the arcade, and a good amount of the arcade sounds have been put into the game, though some are still missing, which should not be the case since this was a more powerful 32-bit CD system. Controls were probably the port's strongest attribute, especially if you're using the original bean-shaped Saturn controller. The game had all of the arcade features, minus the opening story arc. I'm still clueless to the reason why none of these versions had this. Loading times were pretty bad in this game. The game loaded during the fight ladder, and also loaded after it. Too much loading. I just want to play already. If that wasn't bad enough, the game loaded prior to doing Fatality. What is this, the Sega CD? For some reason, the Sega Saturn has mixed tracks, meaning in some levels, the arcade tracks are swapped with other tracks. All flaws aside, the port is still enjoyable and for a little while was the only way to get the most complete Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 experience. Please visit www.retrowaretv.com for a link to the continuation of this video.